Hey everyone, today we're gonna be reacting to two animated stories. This one is called I Got Kidnapped by a 7 years old. Now imagine this. You're at home, right? Just chilling on your couch. All of a sudden you get kidnapped by a 7-year-old. That's unlikely. Anyway, let's get into this. See what this is about. You can't get kidnapped by a 7-year-old.
Pain hit me like a ton of bricks. For a moment, I didn't know where I was or who I was. There was just the terrible, throbbing agony in the back of my head. There was also an unbearable stench of bleach. Suddenly, a little voice whispered in my ear, "Good morning, Mama." My eyes flew open and I turned in bed. There was a pretty little girl with blue eyes and blonde hair looking expectantly at me. She must have seen the confusion on my face. "It's me, Mama," she cried happily. "It's Hannah." I was shocked and I sat up, fighting the blinding headache, but something was holding my leg down and I heard the clink of steel on steel. When I looked over, I saw a cuff around my foot, chaining me up to the bed frame. I looked around the room. I didn't even know where I was. When my hair swung in front of my face, I gasped. My brown hair was blonde now. I panicked, turned again to the stranger who was calling me her mother. But now I realized she wasn't a stranger. I recognized her little face. She was my boyfriend's daughter. Whoa, that's intense. Do you think I'm just having a nightmare? Before I continue, please click the like and subscribe buttons below. Hi, my name is Helen. This is the story of the craziest and creepiest month of my life. "What's going on?" I asked in a panic. "Where's Hank?" "Dad's just fixing something," Hannah replied happily. Then she waved her small hand to point at something on the wall behind me. "Look, Mama," she added, and I gasped. All over the wall were pictures that Hank took of me while we were dating. Hannah had drawn blonde hair cutouts and pasted them on my head to hide my brown hair. To my surprise, there were pictures of Hannah, too, and they were pasted on top of mine. There were notes everywhere saying, "My mom and me." In the middle of it all, there was a big picture of me and Hank, who looked big and muscular. He had a goofy smile on his face. There was something scribbled on top. It read, "I love my family." I was getting goosebumps on my arm. Nothing was making sense. What kind of sick joke was this? I was fighting the rising panic in my chest. I thought of my 2-year-old son Marcus, who I had left with my mother last night. I had to get out of here. I had to get home. But I was chained to the bed like a trapped animal. "Do you know how to get this thing off?" I asked her, pointing to the cuff around my foot. "And who bleached my hair?" But Hannah's attention was elsewhere. She grabbed her toys and laid them between us on the bed. "Let's play," she told me excitedly. I tried to clear my head despite my headache while Hannah played. I pressed my hands on my eyes and tried to remember how I got to this position. I remember meeting Hannah for the first time last night at dinner. We had a wonderful time. I could see Hank's proud face in my mind, beaming proudly, when I said that his daughter seemed like a gifted 7-year-old. Hannah even kissed me on the cheek before she went to bed. "Last night you asked permission if you could still watch TV and write in your diary before going to bed," I said out loud to Hannah. She smiled sweetly at me. "Yes, I have to write in my diary every day." I walked from the kitchen to the living room. Your father was laughing, then I heard a thud. I added, trying to make sense of it all. Then something hit me really hard on the head. I tried to remember more, but I was drawing a big blank. Hannah suddenly laughed. "Did you have a bad dream, Mama?" she asked innocently. I felt like I was still dreaming, but the cold touch of steel around my foot, I knew I wasn't asleep anymore. This was all real. "Hannah?" I asked as calmly as I could. "Where is your father? Can you go and get him?" But Hannah just shook her head. "I don't think that Daddy is going to spend time with us today," she answered with a touch of annoyance. "Please play with me." She looked at me with her piercing big blue eyes. I realized that until Hank arrived, I wouldn't get any answers. Meanwhile, Hannah was playing with the makeup she found in my bag. "Do you think I'm pretty, Mom?" asked Hannah. My heart went out to her. The poor little thing, she had no idea that her father was crazy. I wondered about the night before. Something or someone hit me really hard on the head. I heard a thud coming from the kitchen right before something hit me. If Hank was in the kitchen, how did he get to the living room so fast? After a while, Hannah complained that she was hungry. She asked if I could make her some food. Daddy showed me how to remove it from the bed, she explained while pointing at the cuff. She wiggled under the bed, twisting the chain. A few moments later, she showed me that the chain wasn't attached to the bed anymore. Now it was connected to a big metal ball.
Ooh.
Anger flared up inside me again. What kind of sick father would teach his daughter to work a ball and chain? But aside from anger, I was starting to get scared. What else was Hank capable of doing to me? Somehow I managed to drag that ball out to the kitchen so I could make Hannah a snack. Then I asked her for help again if she knew how to remove the ball completely. I explained that I had to go home. My son was waiting for me. "Please don't leave me," Hannah begged, and she began to cry. "Don't leave me alone here. I'm scared." But I was more worried about myself than Hannah at that point. I dragged the ball to the front door and realized that it was locked from the outside. I tried the windows. They were locked too. Feeling furious and frustrated, I even tried to break the glass, but it wouldn't break. My cell phone was gone and I didn't see a phone anywhere. I started to pound on the glass.
Imagine have to carry like a big boulder everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, that must be real. I couldn't do it. I don't know how she do it. I couldn't do it.
I was screaming to the people I could see outside, but nobody turned to look my way. I came to a realization that chilled me to the bone. There was no way out and no one to call for help. That's when I started to cry. Hannah ran to me and hugged me tight. I didn't see Hank at all that day, but there was a constant thumping sound coming from the attic. The next morning, I finally saw Hank. He and Hannah came into the room carrying a tray for breakfast. "Can I share your breakfast, Mom?" Hannah said while jumping into the bed. I looked angrily at Hank and I demanded that he release me, but he never said a word. I grabbed his hand. "What kind of sick joke is this?" I cried out. I started to shout, but Hannah covered her ears. "Please don't fight," she said, and she started to cry. Hank looked me straight in the eyes. I was shocked at what I saw. His eyes looked dull and full of sadness. "This is for the best," he said before leaving. "This is for the best, Hannah." I spent the next few days chained to that bed. Hannah was my constant companion. My heart was bleeding for this poor little girl. She seemed so starved for a mother's love and affection. Everything she made, she showed to me with such hope and excitement on her face. She talked constantly about the new things she learned, like the animals in Australia. I hated Hank for keeping me locked up like this, but now I was afraid of him too. He was a totally different person from the man I thought I was falling in love with. He was sullen and withdrawn. He never even looked me in the eyes anymore. The days went on. I had to fight the urge to cry and panic when I thought about Marcus. I needed to find a way to escape so I could get to my son.
Yes,
so I formulated a plan. I knew I wasn't strong enough to go against Hank physically. I hoped that the only reason why I was still chained up was because Hank was afraid that I would run. I had to prove that I wasn't planning on going anywhere. So I gave in to Hannah's hugs and cuddles while waiting for my chance. I made her laugh. I played with her. I made her little treats in the kitchen. I worked on the perfect mother persona for weeks. I even scolded her a bit for watching those reality TV shows that were way too mature for her. Finally, my plan was working. Hannah started to complain that I couldn't properly play with her if I was always dragging that ball around. She begged her dad to remove it, and he did. A few more days passed. Holding and hugging Hannah almost became second nature by now. She was an easy child to love, and I pitied her more than I could say. She couldn't leave the house. She didn't even go to school anymore. One night, she came to my room to tell me about her reality show. She said the people in her show went to a restaurant near their house. "Please, can we go?" she begged Hank. Hank gave her a questioning look and pointed to me. "Please, Daddy," she said again. "Mom loves me now." I brushed the top of her head lightly, a gesture of affection. Hank finally gave in. "Remember to behave,
Good
Helen,"
Hank.
he told me by the front door.
Good Hank.
No funny business. I nodded, and it was the first time I saw the outside world in ages. We got into the car and drove to the restaurant. Hannah was practically jumping in her seat in her excitement. She kept cuddling next to me, saying that she had the best family in the world. When it was time to pay the check, I stood up and excused myself. "I have to use the ladies' room," I replied. And to stop the suspicion forming in Hank's eyes, I asked Hannah to come along. The little girl grabbed my hand and went. I led Hannah to a stall, and I went to the one next to it. As much as I wanted to take care of Hannah, I needed to leave her father. I needed to escape. So before I left the bathroom stall, I quickly got my lipstick and smeared a message on the door. It was my only chance to get some help. I didn't have an address or a phone number, but I knew the plate number of Hank's car. When we were walking back to the car, we heard shouting coming from the restaurant. My deliverance came in the form of waiters and waitresses running to my rescue. Somebody had seen my note. I was saved. The police arrived soon after. They handcuffed Hank in front of me. I finally got my vengeance. Now it was going to be his turn to feel how terrible it is to be locked up. Hannah was crying the whole time. I took her in my arms. "Please don't let them take my daddy away," she cried to me. I tried to comfort her as much as I could. The poor little girl was being traumatized again. But the cops also took Hannah away. She was being sent to a social worker. As much as it hurt to let her go, my arms were craving to hold my son again. I finally went home and my life gradually went back to normal, despite meeting with the police.
It's like, I mean, it had to be done. It's a tough decision to make. I mean, you have this guy who kidnapping the dude, and the girl loves you, but at the same time, and the dude getting kidnapped, and the daughter was upset. It's just madness. It sucked, but, at least she'd been taken care of.
All the time. I told them about the night I fell unconscious. They assumed that Hank must have run to the living room the moment that his daughter left. They said that it was an open and shut case about a man who was obsessed with finding a mother for his child. I tried to stop thinking about it. Besides, I wanted to make up for all the time I'd lost with Marcus. I hugged him as tightly as I could, feeling that I would never let anything bad ever happen to my son. I would do anything for him. But something kept bugging me about the whole ordeal. As much as I hated and feared Hank, I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was still some stone left unturned. I also felt guilty about Hannah, so I went to visit her, just to see her one last time. She sobbed when she saw me and she held out her little arms. "Did you come to take me home, Mom?" she asked with so much hope and heartbreak. "I'm sorry, baby," I whispered to her. "I can't be your real mother." I felt so sad. There was no way I could get Hannah. I felt so guilty about leaving her. She was just a little girl. But the moment I said that, her face changed. Gone was the angelic face I had known. She snarled like an animal. "I thought you were different," she said with a sudden raspy voice. "But you're not any better than them." Poor Hannah thought I was abandoning her. In her anger, Hannah grabbed the only thing next to her, which was her diary. She flung it at me and it fell on the floor. I bent down to pick it up. Meanwhile, Hannah was flinging curses at me, awful words that no 7-year-old should or could know. I thought it was because of all the reality shows that she watched, but then I saw the drawings. I flipped through the pages of that diary. There were drawings of different girls, all with blonde hair and blue eyes. There were notes on each page, stating their names along with the good and bad things about them. There were dates, too. The first entry was dated 10 years ago. "What is this?" I gasped. By now, I had noticed my own face, perfectly drawn near the last page of the diary. "Give that back," Hannah growled. I was trembling from head to toe, but I didn't give it back to her. I knew I was holding the most important piece of evidence in my own kidnapping case. Things were starting to make sense now. Hank wasn't acting alone. "What did you use to hit me on the head?" I asked in horror. "I threw a boomerang at you," she replied, right after I shot a dart at my dad because he said he was tired of playing my game. When he finally woke up, he begged me not to hurt you. But he loves me, and he always does what I say. He's been doing it for years. Years, I repeated. How could that be? Hannah was only 7. How old are you, Hannah? I asked as calmly as I could, but my heart was beating painfully in my chest. You're smarter than I thought, she spat back at me. I may look like a young girl, but I'm really 18 years old. Not much younger than you. How? I whispered back. I stopped aging a long time ago. I'm trapped in this child's body, but I can't do anything without somebody who actually looks like an adult. And I just want a normal life with a normal family. You can feel sorry for me all you want, but I'll find a way to get a real family someday. It doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be any one of you. Hannah's demeanor was scaring me more than being locked up in a house. What do you mean, any one of you? Who are these women? I asked again, pointing to the pictures in her diary. Then Hannah's face changed some more. She looked feral, evil, and nothing like a child. Those are my other mothers, she said with a little smug smile. Do you think you were the first? The mothers that failed to meet my expectations are all buried in the basement.
In the beginning of this animated video, I liked her, but now I don't like her. She's mean. Someone needs to teach her some discipline. But anyway, that's gonna be it with this story. If you don't want another story like this, let me know in the comment below or like it. So I know you want more. Hit the subscribe button if you're new. Hit that little bell button to receive notifications when we upload a video. And peace out.